So, described as the man most likely to lead the group by himself. No, others have said it too.
I didn't say that.
Former Labour MP, Chuka Umunna. Does that feel good when we say former Labour MP?
Well, I think when the former Labour MPs who were in the group made the announcement, it was with definitely a sense of sadness. It was not a happy occasion to be announcing that you're, in my case, leaving a party you've been a member of for 22 years and for the reasons that we cited. But, I mean, I think, you know, this is part of a bigger problem in British politics, which is essentially broken.
Which is why you've got more Tories involved now.
Yeah, I know, and I think the thing is, you've got a divided politics, you've got divided parties who haven't been doing their duties either as an opposition or government competently. They often seem to be making decisions in their own party political interest and not in the national interest. And one of the good things about the independent group is, yes, we all share progressive values, but we do come from different political traditions. And if we're capable of reaching a consensus amongst ourselves, I think we're probably in with a good shot of getting a consensus.
Mate. You might have a few arguments. Let's talk to Heidi Allen.
You can ask Heidi,
yeah. Heidi Allen is in Cambridge, a former Conservative MP. I mean, you came out all guns blazing, didn't you, against the Tory party? Do you still stand by that comment you made about, you know, if all goes well with the independent group, there won't be a Tory party to go back to?
Well, there won't be a Tory party that I recognise to go back to, and that's the point, I suppose, there isn't already. My suspicion is if things continue as they are, the ERG will continue and will be running things going forward. You know, that the bottom line is, I suppose, they kind of won in the referendum, so that makes me the loser. So the party isn't, you know, the party has completely transformed itself, and colleagues who are incredibly sympathetic to Sarah and myself and what we've done, I suspect they will be coming across it and be joining our group. Yeah,
the ERG group are the European research group led by Jacob Rees-Mogg, just for viewers who will have heard these things. Listen, you say that, you know, you've got a website, you say that you... And it crashed, didn't it, actually, quite early on, which is quite interesting.
Well, there was just so much. I mean, to be honest... Morning, Heidi. To be honest, we didn't expect...
It's so nice, isn't it, this? It was lovely. It's so lovely.
We didn't expect the kind of... the level of positivity, let's just put it that way. At one point, we had, like, over, you know, just under 1 million people were trying to get on the website all at once, and it couldn't cope. But already we've got over 160,000 followers on Twitter. I think there is a real hunger for a different kind of politics out there.
And policies. Now, that's the problem, isn't it, at the moment, that people might sort of be interested in your group, but we don't really... Apart from being anti-Brexit, which I can assume you all are, that's the only thing that unites you, isn't it, at this point?
Well...
Bring Heidi in as well.
The interesting thing is how this journey started was we all started working together very closely on Brexit, which we think is a complete disaster for our country, and we make no bones about it. We'd rather we were, as the UK stayed in the European Union. But through working together, we actually realised, you know what, we've got a hell of a lot more in common than we really knew. And
although
actually,
Anna Soubry that believes that austerity was a generally good thing, and Heidi, you have vehemently come out against it, and of course you do. So there are going to be huge issues, aren't there, in this small, burgeoning romantic political group, you know.
Romantic?
You know what I mean?
I'm not sure
it's a very romantic view of, you know, politics working from both sides, working together, but there's a reason there are separate parties.
But don't your viewers want that? They are fed up of people opposing each other for opposition's sake.
But what's going to happen about things like policy on, you know, austerity, about whether you look back at history and you think it was the right thing or the wrong thing? Let's bring in Heidi here. How do you combine very opposing views in a very small party?
I mean, one point that Chuka has already made, this idea that if, well, we can compromise and we can knock a policy around and come up with a middle way, that's going to sell pretty well with the British public, who are all about compromise and finding a middle way. But I suppose the way I look at it, you know, when you're in a political party, most people have heard of the whips, and you're on this thing, you know, you're obliged to follow and vote with the government or your party, regardless of your own views, and that sort of suppresses you over time. And what I think we need to do is accept we come from very, very different places. You know, you can't fight that, but you leave your rosette at the door, almost like a policy amnesty. We come in fresh and we start again. And most crucially, what I think we want to try very hard and do, which is different, I think, to a lot of the traditional parties, is we want to actually talk to the people. We want to talk to the general public about what policies will work for them. And we listen and we develop from that, you know, and base it on analysis and evidence. And I think if we can kick a policy around like that, that's going to test, you know, pass the test with the British public.
OK, so what happens if things don't go well for Theresa May, which is very likely, and we do end up in a situation where in a general election, are you guys ready? Are you going to be ready within weeks with policies? I mean, are people watching now going to know what they're voting for?
We're not a political party at this stage. We're very clear. We all said in our different contributions at our 2 press conferences this week that we think there needs to be an alternative. And that was one of the things, I think, for all of us, we were deeply, deeply unhappy in the parties that we were at. And just walking off the field would have been a cop-out. We thought, actually, as members of Parliament, we've got mandates. We're in a position to provide people with an alternative. And, you know, whether that's a party or a movement, we're clear that we want to ensure we want to provide people with an alternative.
So, Heidi and Chuka, I mean, how are you going to decide who the leader is? Heidi, you're backing Chuka, right? I mean, how's this going to go down with Luciana and other very strong candidates in your small party?
I mean, this is all about, you know, this is team, and the thing I've already in the relatively short time I've been involved with these Tiggers, is just the respect we have for each other, the courtesy. You know, this stuff should be taken for granted, but I tell you what, in politics it really isn't. So I think, you know, first things first, we've got to get ourselves together, have a meeting, and start coming up with those sorts of rules.
So
I'm quite enjoying not having a whip at the moment.
Heidi, will you have a leader of the party?
Well, we'll have to.
You'll have to have a leader of the party, and who would you like to see as the leader of the independent group?
Well, my view right now is, you know, Chuka has brought us together, but like any leader in business, politics, it needs to be the best person to get the best out of that team.
People are like, how can you have people with slightly different views in the same group? Whereas your viewers are thinking, well, that's what happens in the pub every day. Yeah, and then immediately, you know, who is the leader and all this.
But who else is going to join? Because you need more. Have you got names on a piece of paper who you know?
They probably wouldn't appreciate me announcing it on GMB this morning, but you've got to ask the question. But look, we're saying, look, if you think as we do that this thing is broken and we need a new politics and we need to start something new.
But give us a sense of how big this could get, both of you, from your respective
Who
parties.
knows? It was a huge... It was not a decision taken lightly by any of us. It was quite an emotional decision. It was, you know, we've got friends, some of us got family involved with our old parties. So it's a very, very difficult decision.
In terms of sitting MPs in either the Labour Party or the Liberal Democrats or the Conservative Party, have you got names that you know that in the next few weeks will certainly be coming over?
Look, until you press that send button, resigning your membership of your party, no one ultimately knows whether they're certainly going to do it. But what I certainly do know is that a large number of Labour MPs who are deeply unhappy with the leadership, and ultimately they know, when asked the question, do you want Jeremy Corbyn and the team around him to become Prime Minister and to form a government and be responsible for our national security? In all conscience, they know that they don't want that to happen. The question is, what do you do about that? And there are lots of people in the Conservative Party, I mean, Heidi's better qualified to talk than me in that, who are also deeply unhappy.
Let's bring Heidi in here. Is it right that you offered Theresa May, or at least the Cabinet, a chance that your group of MPs would back her in a deal if you got a second referendum?
That was actually prior to our group forming this week. This is a broader coalition. There's a big group of us of every political party, Caroline Lucas from the Greens, Lib Dems, SNP, been working together for months now, and it was that wider group. Yes, we met with actually, it wasn't the Prime Minister. We met with both the Chancellor and David Lidington and had that conversation that we collectively, almost, dare I say it, like a supply and confidence agreement, that we would have backed, and I'm sure that still stands. One of the lovely things that I've noticed and tells me how different we are as a group and how Parliament is responding really well to it is, even though we've kind of left our parties and we're not in those old groups anymore, they still want us to be part of them. You know, the old Conservative groups I sat in trying to knock around different ideas about Brexit still want us to be part of that. So that tells me what a natural home we feel for people. And that's why I think we'll have more people coming to us.
The question will continue to be raised towards all of you, is that why then don't you resign as MPs and then start a by-election and then prove that you do have the public's backing for this new group, because you were actually elected on manifestos that neither of you believe in anymore, and you believe in democracy, and therefore that surely is the only way to prove that you are still relevant to your constituencies?
Well, Jeremy Corbyn has actually been very clear about this before, that first and foremost, you're elected as an individual, and then the secondary consideration is your party label. That is the way the British Constitution works. And for my part, I was absolutely clear to my constituents in Streatham, which scored the highest Remain vote in the country, that I would not facilitate and sponsor a Conservative hard Brexit. I was absolutely clear about that, and I went further than anything in the Labour manifesto. I actually stood on a different document in terms of EU policy, and the Labour Party's policy since that election, frankly, has been totally different to what I stood on. And I got 15% more increase in my vote than my neighbour, who was an arch Brexiteer, Kate Hoey. So that was a key issue for my constituents. So I haven't.
So you don't feel under any pressure, then? None of you do?
I haven't broken the contract with my constituents. It's the Labour Party that has.